All right, let's talk about the future of AI. We usually jump straight to thinking about robot uprisings or superintelligence, but today, we're going to explore a much more fundamental threat, something rooted in the basic laws of energy and information. What if the biggest risk to AI isn't that it becomes too powerful, but that it simply runs out of fuel?
So when you ask this question, your mind probably jumps to a few places, right? Job losses, crazy ethical problems, maybe even a rogue AI taking over. And look, those are all serious things to think about. But the most immediate danger might be something way, way more subtle.
The real threat might not be that AI gets too smart, but that it just runs out of steam. That all this incredible progress we're seeing just slows down, hits a plateau, and stagnates. And to really get why that could happen, we need to stop thinking about intelligence as a thing and start seeing it as a process.
And this quote right here, it just nails it. It suggests that the survival of any intelligence, whether it's ours or machines, is totally dependent on something called gradients. So that leads to a pretty big question. What on earth are they?
Okay, let's break this down. This is the key that unlocks this whole conversation about where AI is headed. And I promise you, even though it sounds technical, it's actually a beautifully simple idea.
At its heart, a gradient is just a difference that creates the potential for something to happen. You know, think of a hot cup of coffee cooling down in a room. That temperature difference, that's a gradient. Or water flowing downhill, the change in height is the gradient. It's this useful disequilibrium that fuels basically all motion, all change, and yeah, even intelligence itself. This slide gives us the perfect way to think about it. Over on the left, you've got the engine. That's all the computing power, the raw processing ability. But an engine is just a hunk of metal without fuel, right? That's the gradient on the right. It's the food, the energy source that gives the engine a reason to run in the first place. Without a gradient, the most powerful computer on the planet is just a very expensive rock.
And check this out. This isn't some weird AI-only concept. All complex systems run on gradients. Life itself, biology, it evolved by tapping into chemical energy differences. Human civilization absolutely exploded when we figured out how to harness the massive energy gradient in fossil fuels. And today's large language models, well, they're feasting on the huge informational gradient between all the messy data on the internet and a perfectly compressed, organized model of language.
So, if gradients are the fuel, what happens when we start to run low? That's the real danger we're digging into, the idea of a gradient collapse. Let's look at the different ways AI's progress could just stall out.
And we're not just talking about one single point of failure here. This framework points to 5 distinct paths, 5 different ways the gradients fueling AI could just fizzle out, bringing this whole incredible revolution to a crawl.
Let's run through them. First, there's data saturation. That's when the models have basically read the entire internet and have nothing new to learn. Then you've got diminishing returns, where you have to pump in insane amounts of energy for just a tiny little improvement. And that leads right into economic collapse. It just costs more to train the next model than it's actually worth. We could also just hit a wall with energy constraints. And finally, there's a human element, capability saturation, where we all just kind of decide AI is good enough and stop pushing for more.
This quote really nails that data saturation idea. I mean, if an AI has seen every cat picture and read every blog post, where does the new information come from? Its ability to compress our reality hits a limit. It's just like an ecosystem where every possible role is filled, and the frantic pace of evolution just slows right down.
Now, I know what you might be thinking. Hey, can't we just have AIs create their own new data to learn from? It's a fair question, but this slide gives us a really smart answer. Using synthetic data is a bit like inbreeding. It can be useful for refining patterns that are already there, but it's not like a true mutation which injects brand new novel information into the system. You risk having the AI just talk to itself in an echo chamber, not creating anything truly new.
Okay, so that's a pretty sobering picture, right? The potential for AI to just stagnate, but it is not the end of the story. If the old gradients are flattening out, the solution is, in theory, pretty simple. We have to find new ones. The real question is, where could AI possibly find a new, almost infinite source of fuel?
And the answer is just beautiful. It's reality itself. All the text and images on the internet, that's just a flat, compressed shadow of the real world. To find truly new gradients, new problems to solve, new patterns to learn, AI has to break out of its digital box and start interacting with the messy, unpredictable, and ridiculously information-rich physical world.
The fancy term for this is multimodal embodiment. All it really means is giving AI bodies,
Things like robots, sensors, ways to see, hear, and actually touch the world directly. So instead of just reading a million articles about a cat, it can actually, poke one. Gently, of course. So why is this such a game changer? Because the physical world is an endless source of new stuff to learn. It forces an AI to understand cause and effect. It gets real-time physical feedback. It has to adapt to things that are constantly changing and surprising it. It gets to tap into a range of information that is so much richer than anything on the internet. The world is an infinite chaos engine, and that is the perfect fuel for intelligence.
So all of this brings us to a final, much deeper question. This is about the very nature of intelligence itself and where we fit into its long, long story.
I mean, just look at this timeline. Human progress has always been the story of us discovering and then hijacking new gradients. We mastered fire, tapping into chemical gradients. We built the steam engine, tapping into thermal gradients. We lit up the entire planet with electricity, tapping electromagnetic gradients. And now, with AI, we're harnessing informational gradients. Each one was a massive leap, powered by a new source of energy.
So this idea that our current AI gradients might be flattening out, it's not necessarily the end. As this slide points out, it could just be a plateau. It's a temporary pause before the next giant leap. Both history and biology show us that these periods of stability are often just the quiet before a huge breakthrough, right before a new, more powerful gradient is discovered. And this leaves us with this final, mind-bending thought. For almost all of history, life has just been a gradient rider, using whatever energy it could find in its environment. But advanced intelligence, with technology, is becoming something else entirely, a gradient creator, actively building and shaping new sources of energy. This puts us at a wild crossroads, with a question that isn't just about AI's future, but about our own. Are we happy to just ride the waves, or are we going to be the ones who learn how to create the tides themselves?